Hi again, everybody. I'm Jamie Allison, and this is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers. We talk to CEOs, we talk to athletes, we talk to scientists, people just doing really cool things in their space, and things that hopefully we can hear a bit about their journey and some of the tips and tricks that they're using that we can apply in our own lives as well. So I know that I have one of those guests today. Really excited about our guest that's coming up. Just before we jump into that, if you've been listening to the podcast for a little bit, you know that Epitome Sportswear is aligned with us, and they're really kind of designed to be able to unlock your potential and perform at your best. And that can be in a bunch of different ways because they, like us, believe in whole life success. And so it might be being able to use it in a nice tough workout, but it might also be going out and taking a hike in the woods with a friend, or maybe going to your child's game and making sure that you're comfortable for that. So again, their motto is live life fully. Aligns really nicely with us, and it's important that they also give back to the community that they serve as well. They are working to impact the inequities in opportunity for girls and women in sport, and for that reason, a portion of their profits go directly to organizations and initiatives that support girls in sports. So if you go to our Instagram profile, you'll see that in the bio, so you can take a look at it there, or just go to Epitome, EPITOME, sportswear.com, and check that out and see if it fits for you as well. So now, I'm really happy to be able to have this conversation. Ashley Horner is a fitness celebrity. Lots of people will kind of know her, but she's a hybrid athlete. She's a professional fitness competitor, ultra runner, triathlete, and an entrepreneur. So she's got this really great background. She's authored and sold over 1 million copies of her different training programs worldwide. In addition to being a big influencer in the fitness world, her entrepreneurial side is really impressive as well. She owns multiple businesses, which I hope we get to talk about a little bit today. She's the owner of a fitness facility, a children's fitness community, and also has American Brew, which is a really cool kind of combination of a coffee shop and whiskey bar. So a couple of really cool things. And so, Ashley, I know that you've got lots going on, a really kind of busy time for you, but thanks for taking the time, first of all.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, obviously, fitness and training is important to you, but maybe if we could start. I know you played high level soccer in your background. Have you always been an athlete? Like, have you been a multi-sport kind of person, or how has that worked for you?
I started out I did dance, and I think dance for me, like ballet and tap, was a little bit too slow. So my mom ended up putting me into gymnastics, and I really liked gymnastics. And at the time, I started doing soccer as well, and I had to basically just choose between either soccer or gymnastics. And so I chose soccer as my sport to kind of carry me through like my childhood and then my adolescence. But I've played pretty much all sports except for golfing and basketball. I tried playing basketball and tennis, and I was just horrible at it, but I have tried pretty much all the sports.
You've done this great thing where you've combined what you like to do and also have multiple streams of things kind of under your umbrella. And I just want to go back a little bit when you looked at, you were, whether you were doing soccer or some of those different things, when did it come to your mind to be able to translate your knowledge and your experience in those different things into helping others and being able to do it even kind of online at an early stage where a lot of people hadn't done a whole lot of that as yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was really intimidated um, with the weight room. Like, my background is in soccer. It's primarily an endurance sport. A lot of like power with soccer, but nothing. Maybe in high school I went to a couple weight training sessions with my soccer team there, but I was always under the impression that lifting weights as a female would just make you super muscular and have, quote unquote, a man's body.
Yeah.
And I was already I had an athletic build to me. And so I was really insecure going in and lifting weights for the first time and navigating what the social norm at the time, like women didn't really lift weights, or they weren't in the dark rooms with, the guys lifting the iron. It was more like an intimidation. And so the moment that all of that changed and my mindset changed, and I actually had the confidence to start lifting weights, and that confidence that the weights and the iron instilled in me, I wanted to share that and how empowering and just how much it made myself as a female, who I was definitely very shy and timid through high school, how the iron transformed me, not only physically, but emotionally as well. I wanted to share that with other women and men too.
Yeah. And have you because you've been doing this for a while now, and you mentioned that you know, when you started, there was a real kind of difference in people's perception around it. Have you seen that change? Like, have you seen that the perception of a strong female has changed over that time period as you've been doing this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think whenever, I mean, this would have been like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, at the time, whenever I was in high school, my mom did like step aerobics and just, stuff with like high volume, like just lots of reps and the smaller dumbbells. And that was
Mhm.
really all I was accustomed to. I remember like kind of watching my mom and then, seeing her start to pick up like even heavier weights, like even in like the aerobics classroom in the setting. And it really just kind of got my, curiosity going, and ultimately like taking that path of like how I can push my body and move my body. And now you're starting to see it. All of these badass females everywhere are
Yeah.
starting to come out of the trenches, if you will, and they're realizing how empowering it is to just to lift heavy and how much it builds just your confidence, and not just in the weight room. It's your confidence and your resilience with life in the world.
Yeah. Well, and how so you get to see so much of that because you've built a real community around what you do. How much of what you do is that inspiration that comes back to you? Like, do you see a lot of those stories where people have changed, and how does that impact you as the person who's training them, or how it's from the content that you've put out? How does that impact you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, there's this YouTube video that I put out, like I there wasn't even an Instagram, like a Instagram social media. I think it was still MySpace that was
Yeah.
floating around. And I did this self vlog that if I could change one life, if I can impact and save one life, then my job is done. And at the root of everything that I do, to my day to day, to just all the projects, that's truly the impact that I want to have on everybody. I want to leave a lasting impact. It's gratifying. It's the best part of what I do.
Yeah. Well, and so the other thing is that you now, I mean, you mentioned that things have kind of changed over time a little bit. That you started with social media as it was years ago, I guess. Now it's quite different. You've built a really big following. That probably comes with great stuff, but it also probably comes with, it's a bit of a double-edged sword too, because you probably also deal with a lot of negativity and things like that. How do you personally, how do you cut through that? Like, how do you focus on the good stuff that comes out of that, and make sure that the other stuff doesn't impact you yourself and your community, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. People have to understand that, you have this idea that once you get so successful, or build like this amount of following, or even become like verified on social media, that the naysayers and the negativity, like the hate is going to stop. And actually it doesn't. People are out there and they want to see you fail. And if I would have quit at the first negative comment that came across my internet screen, I wouldn't have even lasted a week. Like, people have to understand that this is a journey that they're doing for themselves. It's not about what their mom is doing. It's not about like what their aunts or the cousins, or you have to understand that you're doing it for yourself, and you have to accept the fact that when you're on this journey, that it's going to be lonely at times. It's going to be lonely at times, but whenever you learn to distance the negativity and to kind of push back the naysayers, um, you are creating space and opportunity for new people to come into your life, that they don't have to have the same goal as you, but they can be walking down a very, very similar path. And so the negativity, it's always going to be out there. It doesn't it doesn't matter how successful you become or how good you become at what you're doing. There's always going to be haters, always.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you go into, because you have to get past that, you have to help other people get past some of that negativity as well. Um, how have you tackled that, especially now? A lot of your stuff, especially after COVID and some of those things, so much of your work is done at a distance from people. So how do you help kind of create that mindset for people as well, even just in their own personal lives? Because that is a big part of your programs. Is how do you get that confidence, I guess, that comes along with transforming your body as well. How do you really approach making sure that that gets across in all of your programs and the way that you build community?
I like to tell people that they have to have for every action that we do throughout the course of the day, we have a motive, right? Um, you have to find the reason and be able to identify your why and what motivates you. When you think about the root word of motivation, it's motive, and it comes back to like, what is your purpose or what is your reasoning for starting on this journey in the first place? And what I like to tell people is that like that motive and your purpose in the beginning, that can change, but what happens over the course of a time, whenever you set these small goals for yourself and you reach those goals, those manageable goals that you know that you can reach, your confidence just slowly builds over time. And um, you know, people, they often think that they lose confidence because sometimes they don't wake up and they don't feel motivated or inspired to get up and, at 5 a.m. and go knock out and hammer out 5 miles before the kids wake up. People have to understand that motivation isn't a light switch. It comes back to like your purpose, little steps and little increments along the way.
And so when you talk about kind of building those increments, I assume you do that even yourself. We're heading into a new year. If you, are you a visioning goal kind of person? Like, do you write down your goals? I mean, you've got so many streams of stuff. I'm assuming there's some kind of system you have to do just to make sure that you kind of keep everything moving along. But how do you approach your own kind of goal setting as you go into a new year, or however often you do that?
So I think about, if you break it down, whether, people have goals, we can just talk about the new year, going from entering into 2022 and going all the way up to 2023.
Yeah.
You have to be able to identify, like, what are your end goals? Like, where do you want to be like a year from now? And what I like to encourage people to do is to imagine that and create that and manifest that in their mind of where they want to be. And it could be in a year, it could be in 5 years. But in detail, for me, it's writing it down. And whenever you figure out exactly who you are, where you want to be, and what you're doing, you set those goals by going backwards and you figure out your path and your journey of where you are right now and how are you going to get to where you want to be.
Mhm. And do you work through that process with with clients? How do you know? Like, some of them will be thinking, oh yeah, but you're really progressed in all of this, Ashley, because you've got all these business, you've got all that stuff. How do you translate that down to somebody who's maybe just thinking, wow, I'm just trying to figure out if I am too afraid to go to the gym in 2022? Like, is the process different, or is it just kind of the approach to it?
It's not different at all. Where people go wrong is they set goals that they want to achieve and they don't give themselves an adequate amount of time to achieve those goals. Every anything that you can create in your mind, anything that you can manifest in your mind, you can accomplish whatever said goal it is that you want to accomplish. Where people go wrong is they don't give themselves enough time or clearly understand the steps that it's going to take to get there. And so the size of the goal is irrelevant. What matters is people having those hard conversations with themselves of, what is it going to take to get to where I want to go, and how bad do I want it?
And you talk, that's part of it, I guess, is how bad do you want it, and you mentioned kind of resiliency. Is that something that can be taught? Are you like, do you, as you go through this process, I mean, you know, especially the last little while, resiliency is hard to come by, I guess, with a lot of people. Is that something that you think you can kind of teach, or is it a habit that you can create?
So being resilient is going through something really hard and sticking it out and seeing it through, and not allowing the hardships or the difficulty keep you from moving forward and accomplishing your goals. I believe that, you know, the toughest things that I've had to go through, whether it was work related, whether it was personal,
Mhm.
whenever you come out on the other side, you gain strength from that. And a lot of people think that whenever they're dealt something really tough, they think that they can't get back on and continue on, or that they're not good enough, or they're not capable of achieving XYZ. And it's when we push through those dark times, those really, really hard moments, and we get to the other side, that's when our true strength and what we've acquired through that entire time really starts to show through and shine.
Yeah, well, and you have went from being kind of, you know, very fitness oriented to having to manage multiple businesses, all of those things. Um, how I guess two questions. One is what has been the biggest struggle for you? Like, has there been something that you know, has been most difficult in that transition to being kind of an entrepreneur as much as being the fitness person? So that's the first question. The other one is, if uh, is there something that that you would have done differently, kind of in this path, that you know, now that you know, that someone else could learn from?
Yeah, I think some of the more difficult things is again, because every business that I've created, it's solely been out of just passion, like not
Yeah,
having really any background. And I have a restaurant, American Brew. It's a coffee
yeah,
whiskey bar. Not having any real background in owning a restaurant, or like knowing how a restaurant operates, to opening one within a month and being like, like, what the heck, like, you
yeah,
better hold on because this is going to be a ride. And I think that what I've learned that has been the most difficult being a young entrepreneur is two things. People will take advantage of you if you allow it. And what I have learned is that confidence going into these situations, um, it is so, so very important. Um, the other thing that has been difficult is hiring the right types of people for the job that is needing to be done. So, in the beginning, whenever I started my entrepreneurial journey, I hired a bunch of my friends. I created jobs that like weren't really jobs, and just, also attached my friends. I was like Oprah, you get a job and you get a job and you get a job, without having really any like idea of like, like, it was this person even capable of like a job. And um it is really hard for, especially for young entrepreneurs, because you ultimately, like, it's easy for you to hire your friends because your friends are usually supportive, they're passionate about like,
mhm,
what you're doing, you want to hang out with your friends, you want to be with your friends. So I really like to caution people against hiring friends as, sorry about that,
yeah.
phones
That's okay.
here. I really like to caution people about hiring their friends for the jobs and the positions that they have. Sometimes it does work. Sometimes
Yeah,
it does work. Now I have my mother works with me, and it's an awesome, awesome relationship. I would say if there's a young entrepreneur who is listening to this, who is wanting to hire friends or family, get everything down in clear detail. Um, what exactly the job is and what are the expectations. So many of like these things and the problems arise just because of lack of communication. If you have it written down in a job description, and if they sign a contract and it's black and white and they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing, a lot of times this can save a friendship or a relationship. But I like to air people on the caution of like, it is really tough, but try not to hire and bring on your friends in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, because you do hear that from entrepreneurs all over, because it is, I mean, you want to bring in people that can share your passion about something. You want to bring in somebody who you feel you can trust, but at the same time, it's, you don't know what you don't know a lot of the time, and so you do want to fill those gaps as much as possible. Actually, that brings me to, so you've had to learn a whole bunch of different things when you go through these streams, whether it's, learning how to do things online that changes constantly, and some of those different things. um, how do you have that kind of ongoing learning to make sure you stay up on top of all of those things when you've got multiple streams too? Like, how do you personally kind of keep keep learning all the time to make sure that you can stay ahead of all of this, the changing environment, especially now?
That's a great question. It's a blessing, but it's a curse. I absolutely love to do so many different things, and you can see anybody who follows me closely and has kind of been I guess watching my journey for the past several years is I do everything in terms of being like, even like in my athletics, being a hybrid athlete.
Mhm.
Like I swim, I bike, I love to run. I like to try to be fast. I like to try to go for distance. I like to be strong. I like to be explosive. I love MMA, and a lot of that just because it comes from, I guess you can say, just being bored, or I learned how to do something and I want to learn how to do something else. And um, I have that curiosity of always wanting to learn uh, new things. And oftentimes, like a really good example would be my screen printing company. I don't know anything about screen printing, but I found somebody and hired somebody who knows everything about screen printing. And so together, he is able to teach me and show me how the company, how the machines and everything operates. But I want to, that being said, it is extremely important that as business owners, as small business owners, especially, that you have to know how your company operates from the inside out. You have to know how every single piece of equipment turns on. You need to know, I mean, you just, as the business owner, it doesn't matter if you bring somebody in and you have them teach you and show you,
Yeah.
but it is imperative and a responsibility of a business owner to know how a business operates, the ins and outs and all of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and did you did you learn that just through kind of trial and error, or was it, like, did you have mentors that you had, that you looked to as you went through kind of building this process, or was it, I guess, which one was it? Did you have many people guiding you, or did you have to kind of muddle your way through most of the time?
Yeah, well, I wish I could say that I had people guiding me, but it was honestly just trial and error. Like, there
Yeah.
was a company that I had that I invested into. Um, and then I woke up one day and I realized I didn't have anybody running it. I didn't know how to run it. And so it was just kind of like
Yeah.
that moment of like
Holy crap.
clarification. Yeah, that I have to know how my business operates. Like I have to know everything. And you don't have to know it like perfect, right? I mean, at my restaurant, I can cook everything in the kitchen. I can work in the kitchen with my staff. I work in the kitchen with my staff. We cook things together.
Mhm.
My goal, I'm not a cook. I'm not a chef. I need to make sure that the people that are running my business are able to do it better than I can. I can't I can hang with like the quality and like what they're putting out in the back, but they're so much better than me. They're faster than me. And that's what I want. Like you need to know how to do these things, but you don't have to, it doesn't have to be um like a perfect skill set that you have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because and some people, I think, like to, when they're hiring, they often hire people that aren't, that they can feel that they know better than, and I think that there's a certain amount, and maybe, I don't know if you agree with this or not, is it takes a certain amount of confidence in yourself to be able to be okay with hiring people that are better than you at something, and it's kind of the recipe of success, is being able to be confident enough in yourself to be able to hire people that are better than you at a certain function. Like, is that true? Like, does it take some of that confidence and almost an honesty with yourself to be able to do that?
I do. And um, for a company to grow, you have to constantly build the leadership and the skill sets that's within your company. That's the only way a business can grow. However, it's important, and I have experienced this with some of my businesses, that you have to have strict guidelines and orders of operation on how things are going to be ran. Because what you want to avoid, these are two different things. It's one, you do want employees in there that can do it better than you, but you don't want employees coming in and telling you how you can do it better or telling you what you should be doing. Because if you've already laid out the framework, and I've had this where I have had cooks come in, I have had people come into my business, and all of a sudden they just start changing things, and without understanding why. They don't ask, why are you doing something this way? They think that they have a better way of doing something. And this is why it kind of goes back whenever I first started, a lot of my businesses, I didn't have any like order of operations. I didn't have just even like basic stuff like a handbook of why I do things the way that I do them, and why the recipes are the way that they are. And yeah, I want people in the back who are so much better than me. And but what I don't want is for them to not be able to see my vision and to not know the direction that I'm going with the company, and start to shift that and mold that. And a really good example that I love to give my staff at American Brew is that when there is a recipe and it's very detailed on the things that go into this recipe, and they're making something, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So if one person comes in and they're like, oh, I'm gonna, take out the oregano and I think it needs to be cilantro, and they start making these small changes, which at the time, it's probably not very noticeable. It might go unnoticed. But what happens over the course of a time is that eventually that recipe that you created, the origins, the original thing that you created, transforms into something completely different. And so that's why it's really important to find people and to bring people onto your team they have so much potential to grow, and they are better than you, and they know more than you. But at the same time, they have to have a very clear understanding of the direction and the purpose of the businesses.
And the culture and what you wanted to create, because that's a lot of what the driver is behind the kind of system that you build, right? Is what are you trying to achieve as well? So you don't want to change that. That's great advice. So we are getting to the start of, well, we're kind of right at the start of a new year, and we talked about before that you've got your kind of goal planning. But if somebody out here, I mean, lots of people I'm sure will be listening to this to think whether they want to tackle a fitness transformation once they see a lot of your stuff, but also it could be a bunch of other things that they're realizing, well, you know what, I really want to tackle an entrepreneurial venture. Are there a couple of quick and easy steps that you think people could do, like literally right after this, to start thinking through the process of what they can do, and how to kind of kickstart a journey like that, and kind of tackle a new challenge in the new year?
Somewhere along the way, we've stopped dreaming. And I've even recognized it with myself getting into business, and my day to day is so busy. And it's very important, whether you're wanting to start an entrepreneurial journey, whether you're, maybe you're a year or two in, is that you can never stop dreaming. And it goes down, it's the same process if you have a fitness goal, and the same thing if you have a business goal, is that you have to map out your way. You have to have a motive, because just like any physical challenge, just like any entrepreneurial challenge, it's going to get tough, and you're gonna have to get gritty, and you're gonna have to just get lean on everything. And you're gonna fail a lot too. That's the thing. You're gonna fail a lot, but what you can't do is allow those things to cause you to quit. And whenever we begin the dreaming process of who we want to be, what we want to be doing, we have to constantly check in with ourselves and ask ourselves the question, how are we going to get there? And if people are starting 2022 and they're wanting to do something different, they have to be able to see every single detail and aspect of that and write it down. Create it doesn't matter, I don't know, vision boards. I love to write and to journal. But you have to start with the dreaming process. And the other thing that is very important for young entrepreneurs to understand is that you don't need a big fancy office. You don't need any overhead if you can manage. If you can do everything on your own and take what you have made from that small little project and reinvest it back into your company, that's when you start to grow.
And that's, I understand that's kind of what you did originally, right? When you started something, you used the money that you're creating from your first training program and began to build things. So there's some real tangible stuff that, you know, people just need to kind of go through that process right now. And I think almost every high performer we bring on, it is interesting that everybody who has some type of kind of level of a success, almost all of them have a very similar process, and it almost goes back to, you know, whether it's the visioning and journaling and kind of goal setting, that, you know, there's something very tangible there, and being intentional about what they do at the start of the year, especially. So if people are looking to follow kind of you and what's happening in your different businesses, Ashley, what are the best ways to do that?
Usually social media. So Instagram is ashley.horner. You can follow some of my vlogs on YouTube. It's Ashley Horner Fitness. My Facebook is Ashley Horner Fitness. But you can also just find me on my website at ashleyhorner.co. And I think that everything should be connected and linked in there.
All right. And what we'll do is we'll make sure in the show notes, all of those links are there, so that way they can kind of follow whichever one works best. But some great stuff on there. I know your website is awesome. There's lots of really cool stuff for people to check out. So we'll make sure that we drive people to that as well. And if you haven't hit subscribe on the podcast, do that right now, because we have great people every week, just like Ashley. So thanks for doing that. And again, thanks for taking the time, Ashley. I know you've probably got a busy day, so thanks for taking the time out to check in with us today.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And we will talk to everybody else again soon on Big Idea, Big Moves.
Bye.